Hey young friends, Dr. Bill here. As always, I'm really glad that you've chosen to spend a little bit of time with me as we continue to talk about the big names in the Bible. Now last week we finished up with the big names in the Old Testament. We spent a long time going through all of the big names that we thought we needed to call attention to. And now we're going to shift to the New Testament. And for sure, over the next several weeks, we're going to be paying attention to the biggest name of all. That is Jesus. Now, before we do that, I want to call your attention to something very important. If we open our New Testament, we'll find that we have 4 different accounts of Jesus' life and ministry. We have 4 different stories about who he was and what he did. There are 4 Gospels, and that word gospel simply means good news. And those Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, even though all of the Gospels tell the same story about Jesus, in other words, they are all in agreement about some of the basic facts about who Jesus was and what he came to do. Nevertheless, they tell their story a little differently. Each of them has his own twist, his own way of looking at things. Let me see if I can illustrate. Let's say we're out in front of the middle school, or maybe we're in the commons and we're having a good time playing around. And all of a sudden we see a car accident right there on the road between the school and the commons. Somebody has run their car into a tree. Now all of us, if we saw the accident, we would quickly say, yes, there was an accident. The car hit the tree. But some of us, in relaying the story about that accident, we might focus on one particular aspect to the exclusion of others. Some of us might say, wow, I heard a loud bang. It was a loud sound when that car hit the tree. I really didn't see a whole lot. I just heard it. Still others of us might say, well, I saw the car swerve and I saw it hit the tree. And then some other folks might say, well, I saw a deer that happened to jump across the road right when that car was coming, and that's why the car swerved and hit the tree. Now, we're all in agreement that there was an accident, and we're all in agreement that it happened. But each one of us might focus on a particular part of that accident. That might be the thing that really captured our attention. That might be the thing that really stuck with us when we saw that accident happen. So that's what's going on with the fact that we have 4 different Gospels. All agree about the basic facts about Jesus' life, who he was, and what he came to do. But each one of the gospel writers sees the story of Jesus from a little bit different perspective, and each one of them emphasizes different things about what Jesus came to do. So, for example, if you look at the Gospel of Matthew, it is chock full of Jesus' teaching. There are several large blocks where Jesus is giving instructions to people on how to be faithful and how to live, what he expects of his followers. So Matthew emphasizes the fact that Jesus was a teacher by giving us the content of a lot of what Jesus taught. Mark is the shortest of the Gospels, and Mark's emphasis is on what Jesus did. It seems in Mark's Gospel that Jesus is always in a hurry. He is moving from one place to another very quickly, and he's doing one thing right after another. Mark calls attention to the things that Jesus did. He calls attention to the fact that Jesus came to do something and to make something happen. Then when we get to Luke, we find that Luke has his own particular interests. Luke pays attention, a lot of attention to people that we'd normally overlook. In many of the stories about Jesus he relates, he tells us a lot about people who are outcast, people who don't fit in anywhere, the poor, women, those who have particular diseases. Luke has an eye for the person who doesn't fit in. And all throughout his story of Jesus, Luke emphasizes the fact that Jesus offered those people hospitality. He welcomed them. He greeted them. He took them seriously. And then finally, when we get to John, John again tells the same story about who Jesus was and what he did. But John's focus is a little different. He is interested in telling us the story of Jesus as the Lamb of God. Right at the outset of the gospel, he tells us that John the Baptist says, "Behold, the Lamb of God who comes to take away the sin of the world." And that's a theme that runs all through John's gospel. And it culminates in how John presents the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. He is the Lamb of God who has come to take away the sins of the world. So, as you can see from that brief summary, all of our Gospels are telling the same story. But each of those Gospels tells the story a little differently. They emphasize one thing over another. And that appeals to us. Certainly by having 4 Gospels, it gives us a richer and broader understanding of who Jesus was. But we also may find ourselves gravitating toward one Gospel over the other. We might have a favorite because of what our interests are. So that's why we have 4 accounts of Jesus' life and not just one. So next week, we'll begin exploring Jesus as that big name in the Bible, about who he was, what he said, and what he did. Once again, I'm grateful that you joined me. As always, you know that if you have any questions, you can call me, text me, send me an email, reach out on Facebook, whatever. I'll be glad to talk with you anytime. In the meantime, I hope this week has gone well for you, and I hope as you wind the week up that you really, really are doing very, very well. You take care now, and God bless. Bye-bye.